Okay, we're live. Let's give people a sec to find it. All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome to the Holler. I'm Holler founder Justin Canoe, back for another edition of the Holler Hour. This is a special one. We're going to talk about something that's going on in Memphis right now. Before we get to that, tnholler.com is where you can find us. All these hollers across the state. Thanks to your support, we really appreciate it. And we also special thanks to Elisa Parker, who has been a supporter of ours. And if you're buying or selling in Tennessee, make sure to check her out. All right, let's get to what we're here for today. We're here to talk to Rep. Torrey Harris, who is a representative out of Memphis in the Tennessee legislature. Torrey, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. It's a great day still. We are dealing with a whole lot right now. So for self, though, I'm doing pretty good.
So I saw a tweet you put out that I actually don't have handy, basically about your district. We all know that redistricting is going on in Tennessee. Obviously, Republican supermajority is sort of going to have their way with things here in Tennessee. What is going on with redistricting? And tell us about that tweet that you put out and how that came to pass.
Oh yeah, so we are in the middle of redistricting. Obviously, but for those who don't know, obviously every 10 years we go through this process. For those who are brand new, like myself, I'm still a freshman legislator, and so we're still obviously learning this process every single day and really working to get more information. But I did receive information from our general counsel from the state that we are potentially, very likely, on Friday we will see the maps, but very likely we will lose District 90 as for representation for District 90, a voice for District 90. We will. They've drawn me out. I am literally at Union and McLean. For those who are in the Memphis area, know Memphis, but I'm dead center in the middle of Memphis, and so they've drawn it to where it draws around where I stay to McLean and Madison, I believe that's the street. So it's one street over, basically, just drawn around where I stay at, pushing a good portion of District 90, the current District 90, into District 91. Ultimately, they will eliminate District 90 altogether. We currently have 14 districts in Shelby County. 9 of those are minority majority districts, which is constitutionally, we have to have them. And so what they are doing is not eliminating any of those districts, but they are moving one. So Representative Dwayne Thompson's district will become a minority majority district, and it has grown greatly over the last 10 years. And so my district will be split up amongst other individuals, another portion of it, but the great deal of it will probably go to District 91. And they've done that to pin legislators together. Obviously, the Republicans know that they can't win Memphis. And so instead of trying to win Memphis, and what they've done is try to divide Memphis even more and try to do it using race. And so they're going to put 2 black legislators against each other to run, 2 of the youngest legislators against each other to run, 2 of the most productive legislators, the most active legislators that we have out there to run against each other, myself and Representative London Lamar. For the record, we aren't running against each other. So we've already agreed on that, and that is how we try our best to work for the constituents in the best way possible. And so I'm going to get up and move to wherever I need to in order to make sure that representation still matters for the state. We gained a lot when I became a representative. District 90 had not had a voice for a long time. When they did have a voice, it ended up going through the same thing 10 years ago, redistricting, where Jeannie Richardson, Representative, the Honorable Jeannie Richardson, had to run against Representative John DeBerry, who was my predecessor, and they had to battle it out. And so that's kind of what they're doing all over again in the same area. So this is not the first time District 90's went through this.
So, Torrey, let me just give some context here. First of all, you beat Representative John DeBerry, who had been kicked out of the Democratic caucus. So he was forced to run as an independent, and he was a longtime representative because of voting a lot of ways against the Democratic Party. They decided he was no longer a Democrat, and you then beat him. So there's that context, and then also there's context where you are the first gay Black representative, and so you're a historic legislator that they are now writing out of your district. They're drawing you out of your district intentionally. So I want to ask you on both of those counts, do you feel like the context around DeBerry and the context around you being an out gay representative plays into this at all?
And Black and young, all of that plays a part in the decisions that they have been deciding to make when it comes to redistricting. I really do hate that. Representation really does matter. And there's been a lot of things and a lot of issues, a lot of topics, a lot of legislation that has come up this year alone that I've been able to help stop, amend, or be a part of, so that way that it didn't hurt us even further. And so as LGBT people, as Black people, as young people, representation like this really does matter. Somebody who's actually available and consistently transparent with people, that really does matter. And this was a year where unemployment claims were out the wazoo, but we were able to handle a lot of those in my office for my district. There's just so much that we were able to get done in this district. And so I don't want anyone to think that the work that we've done has been done in vain, because we're going to continue to work. We're going to continue to fight. Our district may be going away and this is about constituents. It's not about an individual. So whether it's me or anybody else, District 90 is losing representation. There's no one here to represent them in the capacity that I have been able to, or that anyone else has in the past. So we won't have representation, and we're being divided again. It affects voter turnout as well. People are used to saying, "Oh, I live in District 90." Those people are going to be like, "Oh, wait, I don't remember what district I am. I can't think of who my representative is." It's a more work that we have to teach more people about this process and who is their leader after they pass this legislation. I do hope, it is my honest hope, that not one Democrat will vote, not one Democratic legislator will vote for this map or support this map, and that we'll all fight to make sure that representation does get placed in District 90. And it's unfortunate to see this happen.
Torrey, how did this happen? Do you have any sense of like whose decision this was and who made this decision?
Honestly, I can't say, because I was left out of this process. I can only speak for self. I was completely left out of this entire process, the entire year, from the time redistricting even became a discussion. So I don't know anything about. We were all kind of left out for the most part. There may have been one or two who knew, but at this very second, I can't say who knew or who decided. But it was not a transparent process. So I don't want anyone to ever think that we knew anything about this map. The only way we found out is from our general counsel, and that was because
who is we? You're talking about you in London?
Yeah, I can speak for me in London. We did not know about this at all. They did not tell us, "Hey, we're considering taking your districts out." There was a map that was floating around that someone had made saying that they thought they wanted to get rid of London's district, but that was not a map created by the legislature at that time. And so to see that it's not her being kicked out, it's my district being kicked out, District 90. But people will draw whatever they want. The Republicans are being very strategic while they have control and trying to figure out ways to take over as much as possible. And that includes, even if it can't be getting rid of a Democratic seat, they'll get rid of a Democratic area.
Do you know which district you might move into to run yet?
Oh, honestly, I won't even consider that until after Friday. I won't even consider what I will do. I just know I will be running because representation will stay in the state. I just don't know what I'm going to run for. But it won't be against London Lamar, so it won't be against London. So I want to make sure that's very clear.
Okay, and do you think the context of you having beaten DeBerry has anything to do with any of this?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And honestly, what people see from the outside is different on the inside. I have a pretty decent relationship with him now, even though we are on two totally opposite sides, but we still have to work together. And so I do believe that the governor has some say in this. Speaker Sexton may have leaned towards that. I don't know, but I don't know. I know that it did have a play in it. I don't think that they would have gotten rid of his district had it been him in the seat right now.
And did Democrats have any input in this whatsoever?
From what I know, I can't say that they did because no one talked about it. It didn't come up. It's not been brought up. No one talked about redistricting. We are at this place now where the district is being taken out. So I can't say that they knew or had any play in it because no one talked about it.
All right. Well, Torrey, thanks for coming on here. Keep us posted on how things are going.
Will do.
I think, regardless of, there's a lot of reasons why it could be happening, but the fact remains that you're a historic representative for various reasons. And, to be drawing you out is certainly at the very least dismissive of what you represent. And, at worst, because of what you represent. And so I think people should be aware of that. And we'll look forward to seeing the maps on Friday and seeing what you choose to do next.
Hey, well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And District 90, get out and voice your opinions.
All right. Thanks, Torrey. Take care. So that's Torrey. Just came on here to talk about the fact that he's being drawn out. I think a lot of people are waiting to hear what the maps look like across the state. He's probably not going to be the only one to have his district messed with. He has been effective. Gloria Johnson in Knoxville is another person who is probably going to have her district messed with because she's been outspoken and a thorn in the side of Republicans. I see our friend Gapper X on here saying it would be a progressive channel. I think he means wouldn't, without throwing some race, gender, etc. card out there. That's spoken like a white male, which I can almost guarantee you are. And it's not a card. I mean, it's just the truth. Race, gender, sexual orientation is a reality of the society that we live in. Racism is a reality. Sexism is a reality. The Republican caucus is almost entirely white and male, and they're the ones that are drawing these maps. So, these things are factors. Just because you don't necessarily have to deal with them, Gapper X, doesn't mean other people don't. So I'd encourage you to consider that. And then you say, you can't say who's responsible, but by God, I know it's because of race, sexual orientation. I mean, I'm not sure what any of that means. We know who's responsible. This is the Republican supermajority making these decisions. And, absolutely Memphis's majority minority position makes it unique. And, we're not pointing the finger necessarily at race, but race factors into these decisions quite a bit. There's a reason the Voting Rights Act existed. And, it's just a very privileged position for you to sit around saying, oh, race isn't a factor. You're obviously a white guy. And, I just ask you to consider that when you're coming here and trolling the way you have been lately. But I appreciate you following. For those who are still on here, we sent out our email blast today that we send out twice a week. So I'd encourage you guys to check that out. A few of the things that were in there today were, first of all, it was the tornado aftermath is obviously a big part of it. And I wrote a thing at the top of our letter saying that it shouldn't take us a disaster to remind us we're in this together. Far too often, in the aftermath of these tornadoes and hurricanes, we take care of each other. We sign off on federal aid. And, it shouldn't take disasters to remind us that we need to take care of each other. And I hope that we carry forward those policies and those sentiments even after these horrible tragedies take place. Obviously, we've seen cities like Mayfield got devastated. There's more and more statistics coming out that tornadoes are probably going to be more and more likely. And, the way the climate, I mean, it's 70 degrees outside and in December, that's not normal. But we have seen examples of positivity come out of this. This is Jimmy Finch, who is from Clarksville, and he went viral in a video of him in Mayfield. He took his grill up there to feed people.
I know they don't have no electricity, so that means they don't have no restaurants, no running water. So I just figure I'd do what I can do. Show up with some food and some water.
So simple. Show up with some food and some water and feed people. That's Jimmy Finch out of Clarksville, making us proud here in Tennessee. Appreciate that he was willing to do that. And it was great to see him go viral for a positive thing, which isn't always the case around here. Too often we see bad news go viral, and there's a guy going viral for a positive reason. Another thing that we saw here was this was sort of haunting. This was a guy playing the piano. Oh, wait, sorry, did I mess that up? He was playing the piano in a tornado ravaged house. I mean, it's pretty haunting when you think about how sudden it is. I mean, there's no real warning for this. It just sort of happens and you're left to pick up the pieces. That night, I remember I was out to dinner with a couple friends and we heard about the warnings and said you might want to leave early to a buddy of ours who was in town visiting. And he got home really quickly, got to his hotel really quickly. He called us and he was like, "Oh, it was no problem. I was fine. I got here a lot quicker than I thought I would." The next morning, we woke up to a text from him. He had been hiding in the cafeteria or kitchen area of the hotel with like 15 other people in Hendersonville, and the tornado touched down like half a mile from where he was, and he was in town visiting from California. So, he at one point was like, it was no big deal, and then pretty quickly realized that these things are in fact a big deal. And luckily he was okay, but far too many people were not. A couple other videos that we saw, one of the things that wasn't it his house. I think it was his house. Yeah. A couple other things that we saw here, tornado related. One was, let me see what I'm looking for. I'm trying to find it. So one of the things that has become a theme now is workers throughout the tornado were in really difficult spots. One was a candle factory in Mayfield, where workers basically were told if they went home early, they would be fired, even though there was a tornado raging outside. And then also Amazon workers had their workplace collapse on them, and generally speaking, I think it's safe to say that unions give workers more leverage in these situations. So, when you're not unionized, you have no protection, and it quite literally can kill you. And so now we're seeing videos of some of the people that were affected by this. This was a factory worker at the candle factory in Mayfield, and he spoke to the news from his hospital bed, basically saying he's angry and telling his story.
Has a collapsed lung and broken ribs, and his brother is in an induced coma, but he's expected to survive.
I was landed like in the perfect spot. There was like only enough space for my body to fit in.
Holt also credits the headphones he was wearing for his survival.
Because it's right here, it would have hit my head on that wall, but because the headphones took most of the blow, they broke, and it went inside my head a little bit. Beats headphones and a Lowe's bucket saved my life. That Lowe's bucket gave that wall enough space not to crush my legs. And a hard for me to process of like what all emotions that I'm feeling. More so, I was so scared when it happened. The scariest thing ever. Nothing's ever compared to that. You just can't do nothing about it. But now I'm just angry. It's Friday. I'm pretty sure everybody would have ran home if they said go home.
So it's Friday. He's angry. He says he thinks people would have gone home. And of course they would have. There's a tornado coming, but it's that age-old issue where you have, a capitalist society where the bottom line is all that matters. And so, the bosses of these workers wouldn't let them go home, probably because they were afraid for their jobs, and all the way up. We don't value human life in these situations. And so, obviously capitalism has some good to it, but unbridled capitalism is greed and can kill people. And so, we need a balance. It's not socialism or capitalism. It's, we got to have some humanity in there too. And I think that's in large part what unions give us, because that's really human beings bonding together to make sure that we take care of each other. I'm in a union as a writer. Unions have given us a lot. They've given us weekends and overtime and child labor laws and all kinds of protections. And so, this is a situation where you have non-union workers getting taken advantage of and killed because of it. And it's sad and something that we should all think about. And it makes me think about when the UAW workers went on strike here in Spring Hill, and the first thing GM did was cut off their health insurance. The first thing they did was cut off their health insurance. So it just shows that, at the end of the day, workers are not protected. And it also shows that we need to have universal health care because, they would have less leverage over workers if we had health insurance, if we, if they could take away your income, but not your health, not your life. So, these are all just ways that we take care of each other. And these disasters are a reminder that the common good is what we're really devaluing. It's not, they call it socialism, but it's not socialism. It's just the common good, that we're all in this together, that feeling that we're all in this together. That's what we need to get back to. And, we can have discussions about what that entails. And, some things can, go too far at times, I guess. Patty says, yes, we need to get away from insurance being tied to employment. Absolutely. Amazon said not to go, and they were prohibited for having their cell phone at work. Right. They didn't even have their cell phone, so they didn't know how bad it was going to go. I see Gapper X is saying, you have no privilege. You have no idea about Tennesseans, and especially me. See, when you hear privilege, you think I mean rich. I don't mean that. I mean that by being white and male, which if you don't tell me that, I'm going to assume that you are. You have things that you don't have to deal with that Black people do have to deal with. And that is a privilege. It doesn't mean that you're privileged, that you're like eating at the country club with Marshall Blackburn. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, when the cop car pulls up behind you, you're not worried about your life. You're not telling your kids, anytime you see a cop, freeze, or that kind of thing. There are things that we don't have to deal with as white people and as men. So, that's a whole other conversation. I'm getting derailed. But what I'm saying is, try to see it from the perspective of other people. And I think that's kind of ties us back to what we're talking about here. It's about seeing things from the perspective of other people, realizing we're in this together. When one person suffers, we all suffer, and all of that. On that note, there was a great video. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, this is the most horrific video I've seen this week. This is in our email today. I don't know if you guys saw this. This absolutely horrified me. It's along the lines of what we're talking about. One way that we take care of each other is by funding public education, by valuing public education and making sure that public education is there for our kids. And, it's an investment in the future, however you want to look at it. We don't fully fund education in Tennessee. We're like 46th in the country. We're like $1.5 billion behind getting out of the bottom tier per year. And it's intentional. Our leaders want to privatize education. There's a lot of money in it. And so they're intentionally sort of putting the squeeze on public education. They just kind of don't want us to know that's what they're doing. And the way that they do it is by underpaying teachers and by forcing them into dangerous situations during a pandemic. And then in South Dakota, this was at a Sioux Falls Stampede hockey game. They dumped $5,000 in single $1 bills and then had teachers come out to grab what they could to spend on school supplies. I mean, just think about what this says on so many levels. Like, give the teachers the money, first of all. They're grabbing this money to spend on school supplies for our kids, and we're making them do it for our entertainment. Grovel like this, get on their hands and knees. I mean, who can blame the teachers for taking them up on it? It's not their fault. But the fact that they feel they need to do this is an indictment of our country in so many different ways. And it's embarrassing for all of us that that's something that's happening. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. It's a sure sign that unbridled capitalism does not work, Rodney says. Gapper X, our friend, says, I grew up from a family of sharecroppers, spent most of my childhood picking beans, peas to help my family make money, privilege my ass. I mean, you're intentionally missing the point of what I'm saying. So I can only assume that you're being intentional about that. I'm not saying you're rich. I'm saying you're a white male. And, it's like a Chris Rock joke was once like, there's a one-legged busboy in here who doesn't want to trade places with me, and I'm rich. There are things that Black people have to deal with that white people don't have to deal with. It has nothing to do with how much money you have. There are things that women have to deal with that men don't have to deal with. It has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has nothing to do with, it's great that family of sharecroppers picking beans. Great. You worked some hard jobs. I appreciate that. I don't doubt it. I'm not saying you're a liar, but there are things that you don't have to deal with as a white male that women and people of color do. That is the point. And it's not something to get your back up about. Like, why is it so hard to just let that in and be like, okay, you know what? That's true, because it just is. And so therefore, let's look at things through that lens. Let's work together on this. Let's just accept the fact that like 50 years ago, Black people weren't even able to go to the same schools that you were. They weren't able to vote. They weren't able to sit at the lunch counter. They weren't able to drink from the water fountain. That wasn't that long ago. We just got the KKK Grand Wizard bust out of our damn capital last month. So it's not an attack on you. Nobody's accusing you of anything, Gapper X. We're simply asking you to come along, join the team that accepts the truth, wants to tell it to our kids especially, so that we change it and we make a better world. Nobody's accusing you of anything. It's not your fault. Nobody's accusing you of anything. And that actually helps me transition to this other video that I wanted to share in Chattanooga, where Moms for Liberty, aka Moms for Lying to Our Kids, are trying to censor books that tell the whole truth about what's going on in our country, including MLK books and other civil rights books. And this young man, Levi James Black, who, is somebody that I hope my kids will be like one day, he stood up and told the truth about the reality that censoring history is actually more harmful to our kids than teaching the whole truth.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. I learned recently the school board and other parties that have influence or control over the running of the education system are considering removing some books from school libraries. Books that show the racial unfairness in history are being suppressed because some people think that they are too mature for the elementary age group or make Caucasian children feel bad about themselves. As a fifth grader, I can tell you that this may be true, but it is healthy for us to learn about racial unfairness at a young age so we can affect the future. Filtering history is much more destructive to our growing mind.
That's the line right there. Filtering history is much more destructive to our growing minds. It's just so true. It's just so true. Like, I have a 5-year-old daughter. I've already talked to her about, we went into Big Shake's Chicken last week. MLK was on the wall. I said, that was a man fighting for equality for Black people when, our society was more racist and white people weren't treating Black people fairly. It's not that hard to say it. Just say it. Tell the truth. There's no point in filtering history. It's only going to hurt them. It's only going to make us make the same mistakes. I'm going to get back to the video, but Gapper's saying, you missed the point. The point is, you don't mass judge people based in race. You judge people individually on their character. We're not judging anybody. That you're missing the point, my friend. We're not judging you. You're not being judged. We're not judging you specifically. There are decisions that get made that we can judge sometimes based on race, but we're not judging you based on race. Yes, you judge people individually based on your character, but you guys seem to have missed the point of that MLK quote that you love to trumpet. Yes, that's what we want to get to. That does not mean that we ignore that race exists, that we pretend we're colorblind. That's not what that means. Race exists. Nobody's colorblind. We should see each other for our differences and embrace those differences and love each other for those differences. Nobody's judging you for your race. That does not mean that privilege doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that we all have different experiences on this earth. And it doesn't mean that racism isn't a thing and wasn't a thing and will not be a thing for a very long time to come. So nobody's accusing you of anything. You seem to feel accused and attacked. We're not attacking you. We're just addressing reality. And you don't seem to want to acknowledge or accept the reality that people of color and women are telling you is their lived experience. Like, you just seem to want to ignore that. And that's unfair to them. It doesn't put much trust in them, and it rejects our history and everything we know about where we've come from. And in order to get where we want to go, we have to at least acknowledge where we're coming from. And that's what Levi's saying. So let's hear from Levi some more.
I hope to be an author when I grow up, and some books that are being challenged have really influenced not only the way I see the world and write, but also my friends' views and understanding of society. Esperanza Rising by Pam Munoz Ryan, for example, was a very moving piece for all of the people I know, my age and above.
One thing a lot of people that watch this video point out are the two people up front, right behind him, who seem completely unmoved by everything that he's saying. I'm going to skip to the end here. Let's see here. Let's go here.
Versus Board of Education Time, about an interracial friendship. It has mature topics and minor language, but this also gave me a sense of growing and becoming more mature, which helped again my writing and my views. All in all, I think it is important to remember that academic studies include social studies, and a complete education includes knowledge of these topics. No matter how hard it is to hear, it is important to teach the truth of our shared history. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Levi.
I love that fist bump at the end. That always gives me the chills to see him give that fist bump. We slowed that down and punched in on that. Anyway, Gapper X, thanks for coming. Christine says, everyone knows it's a kind of insanity to hate on an entire race. Yes, nobody's hating on an entire race. We're pushing back on that. That's the whole point. But in order to push back on that, we have to acknowledge that it happens. And trying to lie to our kids about this stuff, it's not the way. It's just not the way. My daughter's 5 years old. She can handle the conversation. She has a lot of black friends here in Tennessee that she plays with, and I think it's good for her to understand their experience. And I think empathy is, at the end of the day, like the core value that we need to work on here. Empathy is what we experience after a tornado, but why are we waiting till after a tornado? Let's experience it when we look at the discrimination in our society, when people of color in our state are telling us the KKK Grand Wizard bust is hurting them every day that it's there. Let's think about empathy when we look at our education system and how it suffers because we're not putting enough money into it. Let's look at empathy when it comes to our healthcare system and how people who get sick in our state, especially, can't see a doctor a lot of the time. I mean, I encourage anybody to go see remote area medical when they're in town. They show up probably a couple times a year, different places, Knoxville. I went when they were in Columbia, and you'll see people sleeping in a parking lot at 4 a.m. to see a doctor for the first time in 2 years. And when you go and talk to them about what they're going through, they're not asking you if you're Republican or Democrat. They just want to get a tooth pulled or see a doctor or get a pair of glasses. So our healthcare system is not empathetic. So much is not empathetic. And a big part of that empathy is acknowledging that not everybody sees the world the way we do. Sorry, in a dentist chair, you had just judged me on race. I didn't judge you on race. You keep saying that. Nobody's judging you. I don't know you. I don't know you. I am not judging you. You do have privilege because you are white. I'm not you specifically. I have no idea what your real name is. We just do. I'm white too. We just do, dude. This is not a secret. Like, every single data point will tell you this. White people control most of the money. You're more likely to be arrested. You're more likely to be killed by police. You're more likely to, suffer from poverty and, have education inequalities. This is just the way the world is. You know, you're just ignoring that because it makes you feel like, I don't know what, like, I'd be curious to know why it's so hard to accept that. Like, I don't understand what's so hard to accept about that. It's not your fault. I'm not blaming you as a person. I don't know you, but I am white too, and I experience it. So for you to tell me that white people don't experience privilege, you're telling me that I don't know what I experienced for 42 years. We experience privilege, dude. We just do. It's not that hard to just accept that and work it into what's going on here. Yes, it's not your fault you have privilege, like Christine says. And she says, go Levi James Black. Anyway, Gapper, welcome here anytime to have these conversations. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a good evening. We will see you soon.